Hi everyone, and welcome back to my film series on 1973. I am looking at movies that came out in 1973. It was 40 years ago this year. Coincidentally enough, the year I was born. As I turned 40 this year, I thought, let's take a look at some of those classic 70s movies that everyone seems to love so much, because the 70s is like, a really exalted period in the history of American cinema. This recommendation came from Ms. Poppy 90. It's called The Friends of Eddie Coyle. It's a crime drama, basically, about a bunch of low-level criminals. Most of them are gun dealers. Some of them are bank robbers, but they're all involved in crime of a sort of a small-time nature in one way or the other. I hadn't really heard of this movie. I might have heard of it at some point, but I really wasn't aware of it at all. The director is Peter Yates, who's done a bunch of films that I am aware of. In particular, Bullet, the classic Steve McQueen car chase movie in which he plays a cop and he chases, he's in his green Mustang, he chases around, or maybe it's blue, I forget, but he chases around a couple of bad guys in a black Dodge Charger. That's a famous chase scene. And Breaking Away with Dennis Quaid and a few other character actors about cyclists, guys, or at least one of them is an aspiring bicycle racer. He's also done movies like The Deep. I believe that stars Jacqueline Bisset, and an exploitation film called Mother Jugs and Speed, and A Suspect, which is a legal thriller with Cher and Liam Neeson. Who I've seen parts of that movie, but not a lot of it. And Krull, which is a science fiction fantasy, and The Dresser with Albert Finney. I don't know a lot about that film, but I think it's a drama. So he has had a pretty extensive career. Peter Yates, of course, is not to be confused with David Yates, the director of the last couple of Harry Potter movies. Actually, he did like the entire second half of the Harry Potter series. Robert Mitchum is an actor who I haven't seen in lots of movies. Probably the most prominent of which is Cape Fear from the 60s, and of course he had a small role in the remake by Martin Scorsese in the 90s. He's also been in some classic films as The Big Sleep, Night of the Hunter, and one of his last screen roles was in the 1995 artsy western called Dead Man, which starred Johnny Depp. And his character in this movie is Eddie Coyle, and he is sort of a small-time crook. He's in his 50s, he's getting up there in years, so he's looking to retire soon. But he's basically spent a lot of time just basically like moving contraband from one person to the next. His focus these days is on guns. As we see him, he is negotiating to sell guns and buy guns. He will buy some from one guy and sell them to another, and that's kind of how he makes his money. There's a bunch of other characters in his midst. The guy he associates with the most is the guys he sells the guns to, who then turns around and sells it to other people. I'm not really familiar with the actor, but he's sort of a younger guy. And there's a really, really terrific scene in a bowling alley where he talks about how he doesn't want any BS with anything that's going on here. He sees older guys leaving the city to go to Florida and retire there and not have to worry about stuff for the rest of their lives, and he wants to do that too. He's tired of, always having to, kind of like scrape by on with whatever, deals he can put together. It's a really, really good monologue. I wish that I'd written, transcribed it or something like that, because I'd love to be able to memorize it. Those are fun ones to do. But the whole plot basically centers around several days in their lives, where each of them is trying to make a deal and try to avoid getting caught, obviously. There's a cop by the name of Richard Jordan. He's an undercover cop. The actor's name is Richard Jordan, I should say. I've recognized him from a few different films. I think probably the first movie I saw him in was Hunt for Red October, in which he plays one of the higher-ups in the U.S. government who deals with the Russian ambassador. He's also had a supporting part in the David Lynch film Dune, and Logan's Run, which was another sort of semi-futuristic movie from the 70s, I think, with Michael York as the lead character. He's been talking to Robert Mitchum off and on, and he's trying to basically get info on the local gangsters, the guys who are running things, the guys who are the suppliers, so he can make his bus, as cops are wont to do. One of the guys he's dealing with actually is Peter Boyle, who is a bartender for a local dive that a lot of the main characters visit from time to time. And I didn't really think that Peter Boyle's character, Peter Boyle, of course, played the Wizard in Taxi Driver, one of the other cabbies that Robert De Niro knows. He's nicknamed the Wizard, and he's been in a lot of films since then, off and on. I believe he played the Frankenstein monster character in Mel Brooks's parody of Young Frankenstein, and he had a small role in Species 2. But the movie he's probably best known for is Taxi Driver. So he deals with a lot of these guys as well, and he's also talking to the cops, so there's some shady business going on there. But Mitchum's just trying to make a go of it, Coyle, and he's also dealing with a couple of guys who he supplies guns to who are bank robbers. If you've ever seen the Bruce Willis, Billy Bob Thornton movie Bandits, you'll recognize their technique here. The bank robbers go to the home of the bank manager, and they'll hold basically his family hostage and order him to come with some of them to the bank so they can get all the money and make sure that none of the alarms go off while they keep the guy's family under guard and then make their getaway. So Mitchum knows these guys, and Boyle knows these guys, and everyone's always sort of afraid of getting busted by one person or the other. The younger guy who's selling guns to different people, he's also afraid of getting busted. He's very, very cautious, but he's also pretty young, so he can be a little impulsive as well and temperamental. Some of the other actors in this movie include James Tolkan. If you've seen the Back to the Future movies, of course you'll recognize him easily. He played Strickland in the 3 Back to the Future movies, the bald authority figure at Michael J. Fox's high school. Jack Kehoe, who is actually also in The Sting and Serpico, 2 1973 movies that I've already made videos on. This sort of antsy, kind of excitable guy. I really like him a lot. I love seeing him in any film that he's in. He's been in some contemporary movies like Young Guns 2 and Falling Down, and The Paper, the Ron Howard movie The Paper. But yeah, he's had a long career, obviously, so I like seeing him. And one name kind of stood out to me in the credits. One of the guys that the gun dealer deals with and is selling to is played by a guy named Jan Egleson. Jan Egleson, E-G-L-E-S-O-N. And that name was really familiar to me, and I looked him up, and sure enough, same guy who played this character also was the director of the Michael Caine movie The Shock to the System, which came out in 1990, which I love. One of my favorite Michael Caine movies. Really, really terrific movie about Michael Caine's an executive for a marketing company, and he starts killing people in order to get ahead at his job. It's really, really terrific. And Jan Egleson is the director of this movie, so he's one of those guys that made the transition from acting to directing, kind of like Keith Gordon. Keith Gordon was in Christine, and then he went on to do A Midnight Clear and a bunch of other films like that. So that was cool. But yeah, overall, I really, really thought this movie was terrific. It was very real. wasn't flashy at all, like a lot of gangster movies with stylized gunfights or anything like that. Took everything in a very, very realistic way. And I have to say that of the movies that I've watched for my series, this is probably one of the ones that I like the best. Right up there with Serpico and the Jack Lemmon movie. What's it called again? I forget the title, actually. I'm going to do a little list of all my favorites at the end of the year, because I'm going to be doing this series all year long, watching as many 73 movies as I can. But this is probably going to be somewhere near the top. It's a really, really good movie, The Friends of Eddie Coyle. Now, I wanted to just remind everyone that I'm still taking requests. I have a couple of, like about 5 movies on deck right here, but that's only going to cover me for like the next couple of weeks. So I need more recommendations. I need people. There's a couple of very big 1973 movies that no one has suggested that I watch yet, and that's very surprising to me. So leave me a comment, send me a message, let me know what you'd like me to watch and do a video on. But of course, you should probably also take a look at the list of ones that I've already done. If you look in the description, you'll find the playlist, the link to the playlist where all the videos that I've done so far, so you can see whether I've done the film or not. The next 2 movies I'm going to be doing are what I call the luckiest movies of 1973. They are Lucky Luciano, a gangster picture, and Oh Lucky Man, a film starring Malcolm McDowell. Those will be the next 2 movies that I do. But please, of course, don't hesitate to check out some of the other 1970 movies and see if there's any that pique your interest and what would you like me to see and do a video on. Thanks very much again for watching, and thank you very, very much, Ms. Poppy90, for recommending this movie. I really, really admire the picture a lot. And if you've got any more recommendations, of course, just like everyone else, I say please bring it on. I want to know about it. We're almost halfway through the year. It's hard to imagine, but we're already past the halfway point in June, which means there's just over 6 months left. And I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more of these. So, yeah, keep them coming. Keep them coming, and thank you very much again for watching.